Have you ever heard people saying that wine is art in a bottle? Well, I tend to disagree with that for the most part because most wines we see on the market are just merely products. But some wines are absolutely fantastic pieces of art. And in this video today, we're going deep into when does wine become art? Hello everyone, welcome to the show. So many of you have noticed that since I came to Canada, I've started filming in this location, but I never talked about it. But in fact, this location is quite related to the subject we're talking about today, which is art, because this place, what you see here, is one of the lobbies in the Montreal Art Center, where I rented my office. The reason why I chose to set up my film studio here in the Montreal Art Center is because this place hosts some of the best artists in Montreal. They have their studios around, we get to talk to each other, share some creative ideas. In fact, making videos does require creativity, and having those creative people around me to be able to critique my work really does help me have more perspective and have sometimes really nice ideas. In fact, today's video is highly inspired by the conversation I had with all those great artists. And I really like the decor here. It has a sense of history and time and tradition that really works well with the subject of wine. So as usual, pour yourself a glass. We're going to drink and chat over some wine. And today I am drinking a bottle of Le Py Cuvée Émilien 2017. Previously it was known as Chateau Le Py, but since 2017 they have changed the name to Le Py Émilien. So this wine was actually mentioned by several members in the chat group, and many of you have highly recommended this wine to me. And I absolutely like this wine too. I think it's a fantastic Bordeaux natural wine, as freshness, finesse, and a great level of complexity, especially for the price. I think it's well worth it. So there we go. I got the wine for you guys. So in 3 days, you can find this wine in my store, so please do check it out. I'm also curious, what are you drinking right now? Please share in the comments or on the bullet points above in the screen. Back to the subject, art. So what is art? How do you define art? It's so difficult to put a single universal functional definition of art because it's such a subjective matter. Now personally, I like to have 3 requirements for anything to be considered as qualified for art. So first, it has to show a high level of technical expertise. And that's the differentiation between a random doodle by a child, which looks pretty abstract, and a painting by Picasso. Because Picasso is capable of painting in a traditional sense with realism, but surrealism and cubism is his style. The destruction and the deconstruction of forms and shapes is the way he expresses his ideas. And that is not to be confused with a random drawing by a little child, because Picasso has mastery of his techniques. Now, the second requirement for me is that it needs to have originality of expression, which really contributes to its uniqueness and the non-fungible nature of art. Now, the third requirement, which I personally find the most important, is that it needs to be able to tell a story of people, time, and place. So now, take some time, think about this. Think about how something you consider as art fulfill those 3 requirements, or perhaps you have more requirements. You can share your thoughts in the bullet points above or in the comment below. I'm very curious to hear what you think about this. Now let's talk about wine. Not all wines are made to be a piece of art. In fact, a lot of the wines, especially the mass-produced, commonly available, inexpensive, easy drinking wines, are not meant to be art. They're meant to be product, a beverage. But nonetheless, let's go through the grid and figure out together what kind of wine is a piece of art. But first, let's have a disclaimer that when I say the art of wine, it's not the label with a fancy drawing or design. I know that Mouton changes the label every year. The painting is done by a different artist, famous artist, of course. But that's more like the art of marketing. When I talk about wine as art, it's not that. I care about the liquid inside. So the first requirement, high level of technical expertise. This eliminates a big chunk of wines we see on the market today. Any wine that's made with large quantity, with simple winemaking methods, usually fall in this category. They're not art. They are also not meant to be art. They're meant to be just beverages. The second requirement, the originality in expression. This requirement cuts out another big chunk of the wines we see on the market today. Any wine that doesn't show character, any wine that doesn't show the character of grapes or of the place. Also, wines that are made with the intention of being consistent year over year. I'm talking about wines such as non-vintage champagnes and sparklings, and some entry-level wines from even some of the greatest domains. Even if they fulfill the first requirement, they're made from such high level of technical expertise, but the intention was not to make it unique and creative. The goal is to make them the same and consistent, which is exactly like a beautiful piece of decoration mass-produced 2 million times. That is not art, that is just a product. And the third requirement, being able to tell a story. That to me is the most important part for wine, and that to me is what wine is all about. So you may wonder, how does wine tell a story? Well, I've said in previous video that wine is a language, and the language is the language of aroma and flavor. And through the aroma and flavor, for someone who's trained to be able to understand this language, you can actually taste the story in the wine. The story of time, place, and people, just like any piece of art. Time is the vintage, place is the region, the terroir, and people is the domain, the tradition, the history, the context around the wine. So a truly great bottle of wine will be able to tell you through its aroma and flavor the story of its grape. It will show you the grape characters. It will also show you during that year, how was the vintage, how was the growing condition? Was it hot? Was it cold? Did it rain? Did it rain at the wrong time? Was it a long growing season or was it a short growing season? A truly great bottle of wine will be able to tell you the specific story of that year. And that is unique because that year only happens once. And finally, the wine is able to tell you about the domain, because each domain, a really good domain, should have its own character, which ties to the previous point, the originality of expression. And a great bottle of wine will tell you through its story how the domain worked to create this piece of art. What's really amazing about wine is that if we take the analogy of a sculpture, when a winemaker makes a wine, a great bottle of wine, and put it in the bottle, he does not create the final shape of the sculpture. In fact, the flavor he imagined in his mind will only happen 15, 20, 30 years from that moment. He takes a block of marble, but he does not sculpt into it. He merely taps some fissures into the marble and let time and nature erode the marble to reveal the true beauty of the sculpture. Just like how a truly great wine gets bottled, but will only show the full spectrum of flavors and show its amazing characters way down the line. And the only thing he can do is let time and nature do its work. And that is true artistry. And now you have this piece of art that's in a bottle, in a glass, and you can drink it. It enters your body, it becomes part of you. Isn't that great? How many other forms of art can you think of that you can put inside of you? I can't think of many. Now, how do you decide if a bottle of wine is a piece of art? Please share your thoughts. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please hit like and share the video. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing because I will regularly put out video about wine and lifestyle. And if you have any comment or suggestions, please leave it in the comment section or on the bullet points. I will read everything you write. And if you're interested in this wine, you can find it on my store. The proceeds from this store will be used to improve the content on this channel, so I can make more interesting videos for you guys. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Cheers.